champions for the second time, and very, very worthy champions.
Charlotte, with the All-Ireland champions, Donegal being relegated, is that a signal that Donegal are on the slide, or is it that they really didn't take any notice of the league?
There's a feeling in Ulster that, you know, they're going for 3 Ulsters in a row, second All-Ireland in a row. The last 2 teams to do that are Kerry and Cork in this generation, and it's going to be extremely difficult for Donegal. There's a feeling in Ulster that Tyrone might just be maybe 3 or 4 points ahead of them at this stage.
It's just they haven't been as disciplined in their approach this year in the league, and they've suffered a few defeats, they've suffered relegation. It will be interesting to see, can they recover mentally to do it. They would still have the ability to do it, but whether they can do it mentally is going to be their challenge.
Taking on the 2 points of the lads, they're, you know, that hunger, it's that bite that's actually required, you know, to win an All-Ireland title. They got to an All-Ireland semi the year previous, and then last year they won it. That desire, that drive was there, and it's just not happening for them, and they force things a little bit more.
I remember listening to Gerlach Nan and him talking about what an All-Ireland victory can do to players, and you can almost split it down the middle. For half of the team, they will always get an addiction to that victory, and they want to come back and back. What it can do, on the other hand, to other players is it can make them feel a bit complacent. It can soften players up. The training is always the same. It will look no different at training. Pete McGrath put it very well when he said loss of appetite can come like a thief in the night. And before you know it, you're on the wrong side of a 10-point victory and asking, what went wrong? We did everything the same as the previous year. Well, lots were wrong, but it was in the mind. And the one thing that Jimmy McGuinness has is he understands the psychology of this sport more than anybody else. That's why he's been sent to Scotland. And I suppose the biggest surprise for all of us was that why did Celtic not already have that sort of expertise? You know, GA teams have been doing it for years, even club teams have been doing it.
You know, they will have celebrated the All-Ireland. You know, November, December of last year they would have been in the gym. November and December of this year they're probably at functions going on with the All-Ireland with Sam Maguire. He'll have, you know, put a programme in place, and he'll have these guys back.
What about Tyrone? Because here they are, they qualified for a league final. They've come a journey, a new team under Mickey Harte.
Tyrone maybe are being talked up a little bit too much, you know. The return of Sean Kavanagh and the form of Stephen O'Neill has resulted in their main scorers. I don't think this Tyrone team is as good as previous All-Ireland winning teams. I do think they will be thereabouts, you know, come August. But definitely Mickey Harte is the man who relishes an opportunity to knock somebody off their pedestal, and he will have tactically dissected Donegal.
Mickey Harte has approached this year with every single game he wanted to win. He got into trouble with the Ulster Council over the McKenna Cup, insisting on using his students. Those students have done well for him into the league, wanting to win every single match. And even you could see he had to face like thunder in the first half of the Kerry match when they were being beaten, and come back to within a point of that match.
Do they have the same defensive structure as they had, you know, when they won All Ireland? I'm not too sure whether a defence like Kildare opened them up badly in the league semi-final, had 5 goal chances, and I think they're still over-reliant on if Stephen O'Neill or Sean Kavanagh pick up injuries, they could struggle.
Have they got the quality that was there? You know, if you look at man-to-man, they probably don't have it as good, but do they need to be as good? That's the question. Are Donegal as good for, you know, as they were last year?
Okay, let's look elsewhere. What about Mayo, All-Ireland finalists 2012? Have they impressed you during the league of 2013?
This Mayo team I don't think will be as good. I don't think is as good, because their loss of Barry Moran is going to be a huge loss to them around midfield. They're hoping on the likes of Andy Moran to come in as well as Alan Dillon. Mayo need everybody to be 100% fit to get to it. Now the lads might disagree in terms that they might get to a Connacht final and win it. I don't think they will personally, but if they do get to it, it'll give time for these lads to progress on and get a little bit fitter and a little bit stronger, and then they'll be contenders.
There's no doubt that psychologically an All-Ireland defeat can take a lot out of a team, and they have to come straight out of the blocks against Gaul, who'll be waiting for them after what happened last year. They had a different league campaign, really. Might have been better just staying up without getting into the semi-final, because Dublin exposed a lot of weaknesses that they didn't really need at this stage. I still think they'll beat Galway, and I think that they'll win the Connacht Championship, but that might be it for Mayo this year.
I have been impressed enough with Mayo that they've probably found a bit of strength and depth. Yes, they are missing players through injury, and they can't just return and expect to return to form. I've seen enough from James Horan to see that they have a bit of character, they have a bit of desire to push forward from last year's All-Ireland defeat, and I think they will be Connacht champions, but progressing after that is going to be a challenge. They have the Croke Park psychological battle ahead of them.
Within Connacht, every year there's always going to be upsets. The one big upset could be London could very well beat Sligo in the first round.
That's going to happen one day.
It has to happen one day. Given the rate at which immigration has affected Connacht and benefited London, surely this is the best time ever for London to beat a Connacht team.
Let's go to the Leinster Championship. Is it a waste of time for anybody to turn up bar Dublin? Is it that simple this year?
Yes, Dublin are the form team. It would appear that they will go in as hot favourites for Leinster. Kildare on the same side of the draw as them. Kildare took a heavy defeat to Cork last year. You know, Kieran McGeeney, the team that played the league semi-final, only had 8 of the starters from that game. So he has brought through a lot of his under-21s. You would expect Dublin to win Leinster, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion.
Kildare have been knocking on the door the last number of years. Kieran McGeeney's done some great work with them. As Kieran alluded to there, he's brought in some under-21 players, and they have added to it. Again, you have to question, are they up to the quality, that standard, that high level that's required to beat Dublin? I would say Westmeath could push. The fact that they're on the Dublin side, I just don't see Dublin being beaten.
And I look forward to seeing Dublin this year because they are a very, very exciting team to watch. You want to see them win, you want to see them play well, because whenever they do, they have a way of playing Gaelic football that makes it just look so perfect and easy and beautiful, and you just really want to see them win. And they also bring atmosphere and crack and crowds to matches, and that's what you want to see.
Okay, let's move south to the province of Munster. Cork-Kerry, is it a 2-horse race?
It's probably the most frustrating provincial championship of the lot, Marty, being honest with you. It's quite imbalanced. Cork are expected to play Kerry in the Munster final. I think you can rule Clare, Waterford, Tipperary. Tipperary are progressing, but you would expect that Kerry will have too much for them. If Cork and Kerry get to the Munster final, you expect them both to be in Croke Park in the August Bank Holiday weekend.
Gaelic football. Is it the game that you all love? Is it the game that has changed dramatically, that you think is going downhill, and it's losing its popularity in comparison to European Champions League football or rugby?
We have this unique group of role models that our young players can always look up to, because the fellow who's staying in front of 50,000 on a Sunday could be teaching your children or fixing your washing machine or sitting beside you in a lecture on a Monday. We will always have that edge over other games because our sporting stars are such unique role models. The world has changed immensely, there is no doubt about it. Sky TV and the Premiership and the Heineken Cup and all of that, but I think what our product is, it's a very, very clean, earthy product that's uniquely ours. And I think that's the best selling point we have.
I think if you break it down, and the GA is in a huge healthy state and probably has more people playing GA than we've ever had, but it's just marketing it to our youth of today. And I have an under 18 that I look after, and with bigger numbers than we've ever had. But if I put them all into a room and I ask them to name 10 GA players, they'd struggle. Even though they play it every week. If I ask them to name 10 Barcelona players, someone would probably be able to tell me. And there is the difference between how our games are marketed, and they're just swarmed by Sky Sports, and it's one of the significant challenges. We are in a healthy state, but we have to try and do more to get these kids engrossed and have the same passion that we had growing up.
I just think, and you talk about here, the likes of Bernard Brogan. Bernard Brogan's a superstar. He's absolutely top class right now, and just to name one, Bernard Brogan, he should be up on lights. He should be seen. Every young fella should be able to identify with Bernard Brogan, and we should be bringing him around the country to show him off, to show skills, do whatever it takes. And there's 10, there's 12, there's 15 Bernard Brogans out there. I think we should promote our game an awful lot better with the stars that we have in the game.
Gentlemen, we're heading into the championship. Who's going to win the All-Ireland in September? Put your name on the block now.
I suppose, Marty, my heart will always rule that I think Dublin have the most potential and the strength and depth, and if they get the balance of their team right, I think they have the potential to be All-Ireland champions. Contenders, Tyrone, if they do gather a bit of momentum, could be dangerous. I wouldn't rule Mayo out of it yet. I think Kerry have one more sting in them, but may run out of road.
Charlotte, what do you think?
I think this is a transition year in the GA when whichever team is going really well will win it. And I mean, Dublin, I think, are the 2 months ahead of everybody else at this stage. They have so much talent, so much strength. I think they're going to win it. I don't think either Kerry or Cork are going to do too much this year. Within Ulster, obviously, you're always going to have, it's going to be Derry, Donegal and Tyrone. Derry might be dark horses this year. New manager, had a good league run, and obviously Mayo and Galway. But I think that it's going to be Dublin's this year.
What about you, Eamon?
I agree with the two lads. I think Dublin are the team to beat. You can name all 7 or 8 of the Division 1 teams to say that they'll be in with a shout. I think Donegal might not have enough. I just don't think they'll have that hunger. I think Tyrone will push very, very, close this year. You cannot see any further. And like that, what Jared said, Dublin have got such talent and such backup. They've got such experienced players to come on, and Kildare might cause a surprise. You know what I mean? If they approach it properly, if they do get beaten in the Leinster, they might come in the back door and rattle a couple of cages. But down in Kerry and Cork, I don't see. As of yet, I don't see them competing. So I think it's going to be Dublin with Tyrone very close.
So Dublin for all three of you. Obviously you won't be spending your holidays down in Cork or Kerry with nobody going for that. Eamon O'Hara, Jarlath Burns and Kieran Whelan, thank you all of you for joining us on League Sunday.
Thanks, man.
All right, that's what they all think, but let's hear what Pat and Joe have to say about it. Joe, let's start in Ulster, obviously the home of the current All-Ireland champions, and a tasty little starter, obviously, for Tyrone in this year's championship.
Well, it's the Ulster final. There can be no doubt, and talk about Derry being dark horses is fanciful. Tyrone and Donegal are too far ahead. Donegal are happiest when they're at war. And the one thing we know about them is that they don't wilt. I was talking to Jim McGuinness and Rory Gallagher today. Jim is one of the most charismatic people I have ever met. I mean, he's fascinating. I mean, the second half was starting whenever I get back to my seat. I mean, he's fascinating. And the players believe, because everything that he has promised them has turned out. And the thing about Donegal, I was thinking about them during the week, is their utter reliability. They will do what they do, and there's an aura about them now. Teams fear them. I still think that they are the logical bet, not just for Ulster, but for the All-Ireland, because I think that, for example, on any given day, 4 or 5 Dublin players will wilt. We saw it today. Brogan wilted. There are others who wilted. That doesn't happen with Donegal. It doesn't happen to Michael Murphy. It doesn't happen to Carl Lacey. It doesn't happen to the McGees.
But having said all of that,
just let me. The one thing that they do is that they've reduced the game. It's minimalist now almost. 1 or 2 errors. You make 1 or 2 errors against them, you've lost the game. I mean, Mayo made a few errors at the start of the game last year, the All-Ireland final. The game was over, and they don't let you back in. And I just think it's for me, their utter reliability above all other teams. Bear in mind, they just survived in Division 1 last year.
If everybody thinks that Tyrone are there and thereabouts with a great chance of winning the All-Ireland, very close, you say.
Very
close. Right, if that's the case, then that means Donegal must be going through the backdoor system.
Well, I'll tell you, Michael, I didn't meet Jimmy McGuinness today, so I can't.
You weren't even at the match.
Offer any insight in what Joe will realise as a member of a team who failed to put All-Irelands back to back, that it's a very difficult thing. To put All-Irelands back to back, you need to replicate the intensity, the work rate and the commitment of the previous year. When you have All-Ireland medals in your pocket, that's very difficult. Jimmy McGuinness will only know whether they can replicate that intensity in the white heat of the battle. That's number one, I think. And when Donegal don't reach that intensity, they're an ordinary enough team. Secondly, they won an All-Ireland last year, deservedly so. But they had no injuries the whole year long. That's luck.
You're right. They have a very small squad. They
have no extra subs. And number 3, they're totally dependent on Michael Murphy and to a lesser extent Colin McFadden. And if they're in trouble, Donegal are in trouble.
Absolutely.
After today, I didn't fancy Tyrone. I thought they were well off the pace. I fancied that Dublin are probably in the pole position, Donegal second, Tyrone third, and a couple of counties together, Kerry, Cork, maybe Mayo, maybe Kildare.
Let's come down to Leinster then. If Dublin Kildare look like the only team that could stop Dublin.
No, I disagree. I don't think Kildare.
No. So therefore, it's just Dublin full stop.
I think the Dubs will blow them away. The thing about the Dubs though is this: if you suppress them for a while, you could even see it today. It's just that Tyrone didn't have enough firepower to push on, which is Tyrone's big deficiency. They have definitely improved from last year. They're younger, they're more vibrant, they're looking good. But the problem is when they're in that claustrophobic environment in Ballybuffet, where are they going to get the scores? Now, they'll get scores from their keeper, but it's virtually impossible to get scores against that Donegal blanket defence if you can't fire the ball long sometimes. And Tyrone have a short game that's going to make it very, very difficult. The Dubs in Leinster, I think, are a virtual certainty, unless they had a complete shutdown against the like of Meath or something on a one-off basis, but it's hard to see it. They're really operating at a different level in Leinster.
Pat, it must be strange for Kerry to find themselves as just about maybes for the championship this year.
Well, that's based on the form, I suppose, they displayed during the league, but in fairness, they recovered well to win the last couple of games and stay in the league. It will be a Kerry-Cork Munster final, a traditional Munster final. Particularly Kerry need to go through the front door. Kerry, there's too many fellas with lots of mileage in their legs. They need to go to the front door. Now, Kerry will be going with about 12, perhaps 13 of the players they used over the last 2 seasons. It's a big ask. They went for their last hurrah last year with that bunch and came up short. They're going for their last hurrah this year with fellas with a lot of great footballers, but with a lot of mileage in the legs. And they will beat Cork. I think Cork, without Colm O'Neill, I think Cork are on the decline. Cork are trying to have decided to reinvent themselves with this blanket defence, and they're poor at it. Now, the big question mark about Kerry is, remember, they will have 3 big matches then in Croke Park to win in All-Ireland. And is there 3 big matches, 3 big 70 minutes intensive matches in those fellas with a lot of mileage? I would like to think there is, but I doubt it.
Let's go over to Connacht then next, Joe. Your fans in Mayo want to know, are they going to win the Connacht Championship?
Well, they will.
Or go further, obviously.
Well, they will if they can stick the ball in the net. But it's a big problem now, and it's becoming a bigger problem. I mean, they had 9 goal chances against Down in the league. 9 goal chances where they had a one-on-one where they'd come past the last defender. They had 5 goal chances in the last game against...
Lies, damn lies and statistics, Joe.
I'm just making the point that, you know, they've got to start taking these chances. You know, against Dublin last year in the All-Ireland semi-final, they made life very difficult for themselves because they had 3 or 4 great goal chances, which you would expect them to take. Kevin McStay has an interesting phrase about them. He says that we don't respect possession enough. And you've got to take those chances because at the higher level, you get 1 or 2 chances, that makes all the difference.
Final word, Pat, who's going to win the football championship?
At the moment, I would say Dublin, followed closely by Donegal. Dublin-Donegal, but you never know, maybe hope springs eternal for Kerry and the Tyrones or whatever like that.
With the caveat, which is right, Pat,